Well, good morning, everybody, or should I say good afternoon, depends upon which part of the world you're living in, or at least our great country today. How you guys doing, Christy and Chris?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Chris?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Sorry. I didn't know if you were gonna respond to Christy, if we were having just like a typical group conversation. But I do have my coffee at the Cove. They've redecorated the walls of the Cove Cafe with Frozen 2 and Tomorrowland. So it's really beautiful in here.
I like it.
I love all the stuff that you got on your wall there. So I got my DCL mug, but if I have any more coffee, unfortunately, I think I'm going to be bouncing off the walls.
I have nothing DCL. I have no good coffee mug.
It's okay. You have a good excuse. You're in a stranger's home.
Yes, I'm in a stranger's home, meeting in court all day. It's an insane day.
Well, I do have to say this. If anybody follows Christy on Twitter, there's somebody on Twitter called Circus Bear, and he puts up a mug every day, and I think he's got more mugs than you, Christy.
He might. I should ask him. How many he has. I think I was at like 70. I don't have those mugs with me, but I think I had about 70 something.
I know. I think you guys
were
kind of going back.
Where are the mugs now? In a box in storage?
Yeah, we won't talk about that right now.
Okay.
Anyways, thanks for everybody who is watching live. And if you're watching this a little bit later, that's awesome too. We're going to cover the latest release by Adventures by Disney. They came out with their 2022 river cruising itineraries, and they've got something new. Christy, what was that?
They have adventure cruises, adventure travel now.
Or expedition cruises.
Oh, yeah. I guess it's not really adventure. Oh, it's going to be a day.
It's all adventure.
We can't edit it either. It is an adventure. So that's why I guess I called it that. But yes, expedition is the word I was going for. I guess you shouldn't set me up.
Yeah. So they came out with their 2022 river cruises. Anthony Hatch says hello. Hello, Anthony. With their river cruising dates, there are some that start in 2021. There is, I think, one, and I didn't look to see if there's any availability left on the Antarctica, which is 2021. But then it goes on into 2022. And as of, we're not going to go through all the dates and rates or whatnot, but there are some that have gone to waitlisting already. But for the most part, the majority of them still have the booking discounts, right, Christy?
Yes, you can get up to $500 off 2022 river cruises if you book by April 11th. And are they giving a discount? I don't see that page on the expedition cruises. Of course, I don't have that up right now.
They are. It's the same thing through April
11th.
Yeah.
So the one thing to note is they only offer those like the first couple of people or families that book per date or whatever, or per cabin type. So it's not like open availability. It's not everybody can have that. So you might either have to alter your dates or pick a different trip if you really want that discount, or just get it early if you want it. So call your travel agent to get that. The other cool thing to note, since you were talking about just the different dates and looking online, is you can actually see the prices online. Now, some of them, like if you're putting one person in a room, you're not going to be able to figure out that price. Or if you have a family of 3, you're not going to necessarily figure out that price. But you can get an idea of what they're charging per kid and per adult by going through the Adventures by Disney website. So that just gives people an idea of what stuff's costing a little bit.
Good points there. And I guess the last thing, I didn't mean to jump into the cost right away, but I guess we ended up there. But one other thing to kind of keep in mind, if you're a DVC member, which is sort of cool that they do this, that as the prices go up, you are always eligible for the opening day price. Now, that doesn't include the discount. That just means the base opening day price. So if you decide not to book for another 6 or 7 months and the price goes up due to limited availability, as all these cruises do, then you're still eligible for that opening day price. Did I say that right, Christy?
You did. And what's also great about that is you can still work with a travel professional, travel agent, and get that discount. So you don't have to call DVC in order to get that pricing. You can call your favorite travel agent and they can get that pricing for you.
Exactly. So,
excuse me.
Go ahead,
is Anthony Hatch correct that these are $13,000 per person?
The Antarctica ones are, yes. Close to that.
My goodness.
But, okay. This is Antarctica. No one, you're not just taking your family of 4 that's used to their regular Caribbean cruise without any planning to Antarctica. So these are
No,
big,
I
huge,
did my research on Antarctica. It's really intense.
these are big, huge bucket list experiences that you really, these are once in a lifetime. These aren't, your yearly trip.
Well, and correct me if
It
I'm wrong,
could be.
Christy, but river cruising is more expensive than ocean cruising typically, right?
It is. But the one thing to note is a lot more of your expenses are covered in river
Included.
cruising.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You taught me that.
Oh.
Included expenses that you've already paid for. Well, also, I will say, I think my aunt and uncle did a river cruise, and they said that their window, or like little, I don't know, their window became a balcony or whatever, but that at some of the ports, they could open up a little gate on their balcony and walk out from their room onto the edge of the river and leave. Like that is
Yes.
how accessible these ports are. So it's just a different experience. And I know for a fact that at some point in my life, I want to do that. I just
for sure.
feel like I have to save a lot.
Yes.
So one of my friends, actually, he and his girlfriend went to the Antarctic 2 years ago, and I know that's a little dated, but I am going to make it a point to get him on and talk about it. It wasn't Adventures by Disney, because Adventures by Disney isn't just now coming out with these, but I think it'd be kind of fun to have him on, just kind of like we had Jen on this week. If you haven't listened to her podcast yet with their family trip down to the Galapagos, obviously they didn't use Adventures by Disney yet because they hadn't started, but you kind of get a taste of what that type of adventure would be like. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I highly encourage you to go check out that episode, which we just dropped on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wait, Steve, I want to do the Antarctic episode with you.
Well, so do I. So there, you have to have us both.
Fine. It's going to be 7 people all talking at the same time.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. His girlfriend's really talkative. Scott can be kind of snarky and quiet sometimes, but he's a good dude. So we'll see what we could put together. But well, look for that.
It really will be.
Yeah, look for that in the future. All right. Well, let's kind of jump into it. Christy, why don't you kick us off at the river cruising? You don't have to go through each and every itinerary, but kind of give an overview of what that is, and then maybe some of the differences and whatnot.
Okay, so Disney has partnered with AMA Waterways. I don't know why I can't talk today. And they are the ones that have created the small ships, they call it, that the river cruises go on. Disney has suggested that children be 8 and over to do the cruises, but the minimum age is 4. So if you have a child that they have to at least be 4, but they would suggest 8 for just the ease of doing all the activities. The rivers are the Danube, the Rhine, and the Seine. The Seine is an older, Disney, I really cannot talk today. I'm sorry, guys. Disney uses an older ship, and that ship does not have connecting cabins. So if you had a cabin or a family of 3 or 4, unless you're dividing up the kids and the adults, your children are going to be in completely separate cabins than you. And obviously you can't walk through the cabin to get to it. So that is really something important to note. When the Seine first came out a couple years ago, I think you guys recall that Steve and we talked about how I really wanted to do this cruise. I was trying to figure out if I could do it, but the non-connecting cabin and that you can only fit 2 in a cabin was a deal breaker for me for that cruise. And I'm pretty sure the cruise was going to be last year and nobody was going to do it because, 2020. But besides that, the Danube and the Rhine are on a ship that was actually built to be used by Disney. And so in conjunction with Disney, there's actually a little swimming pool on that ship, and it has a lot more connecting cabins. The lowest category of the connecting cabins always sells out first. So you just want to keep that in mind. So if you are a family that's thinking of doing this, then you are going to want to book early. And
Christy,
then
I have a question.
Yeah.
What makes it the lowest category? Is it in interior, there's no windows, or do you know why it's considered lowest category?
No, I mean,
I do if you got it.
Sure.
I do if you got a second.
It's
So
just their lowest category that has a connecting cabin or has a ability to either do 3 or connects to another cabin of 3 or 4 or 2. I mean, go on, Steve.
are you just talking in regards to the price, Chris, or were you?
Yeah, like I guess I'm wondering what makes a river cruise cabin, because I thought most river cruise cabins are like along the outside of the ship and all of that, but do they have interior? Or I'm not super familiar with that.
No, so the ships themselves, the lowest cost cabin is at the very bottom, and they have windows. So they have like think about port windows, similar to
Uh-huh.
like an ocean view, but smaller. And they
Yeah.
don't have those balconies like you're talking about where you can open up the doors. The next prices kind of go up as you have those balconies, and then obviously they have like a I'm not sure what it's called, but like a master suite, kind of a bigger one as well. But that's really the main difference there is whether you have that balcony or not. So
Makes
sorry,
sense.
Chris, we kind of cut you off.
So,
Yeah, I was just
and
curious.
then, no, it's good. So then there are a few specialty cruises in river cruising coming up for 2022. There's the ones that they've had every year, which is the Oktoberfest, and then they have, and that's on the Danube, and on the Rhine, they have a food and wine cruise. And then they do have adult only cruises for the different rivers as well. So if you had adults that maybe just want to cruise with other adults, then which obviously makes sense, then they can do that. And then there are the Christmas markets cruises, which we've had a couple of people on to talk about that, which those sound amazing. And that's on the Danube. And then there's a new cruise on the Seine this year, which is a National Geographic, well, for 2022, a National Geographic photography sailing. And I believe they have 2 sailings for that. And so they're going to obviously get into more, here's how to take pictures, blah, blah, blah. So then with the river cruises, there are pre and post cruise escapes. So there's 2 to 5 days in either Amsterdam, Budapest, or Paris. And then the departure date range from May until December of 2022, depending on the cruise.
Perfect.
Okay, which city would you pick to do a pre or post in, Christy?
Well, partially will depend on which river I was taking. So, because those rivers, those pre or post are river specific. So it's either, Amsterdam, Budapest, or Paris because it's the Seine, the Rhine, or the Danube. So it would really depend on which of those cruises you were going to take. Of the cruises, Steve, we had talked about this before. So I think besides the ship, I feel like the Danube is maybe or not the Danube, but the Seine is, I hate to say it, but the most family friendly river because, Paris and things like that. So, but then besides that, I don't know. Which do you think, the Danube or the Rhine, Steve?
I'm not sure if I have a handle on which would be necessarily family friendly, but I guess to your point, Christy, is they offer very different experiences in each one of those trips. So that's kind of something that you'd really want to look at because like for me, I've always wanted to go down the Rhine for some reason, but actually when I look at the activities, the Danube actually speaks more to me as far as things that we would want to do as a family. So I guess I don't really have a sense that way as far as which one might be better, but I think that's something that you really need to do your homework on and look through.
When we were looking, we were going to look more at the Rhine for my family. So, but something to know and to remember is that the activities that you think you may like may not be the activities that you end up thinking are the activities you like. We were just talking about our guest that was on that went to Australia for the ABD, and the sheep farm was their favorite excursion, and nobody would have thought, nobody would have thought
sheep farm would be the highlight.
Exactly. And it was. And so you just have to trust a little bit that Disney sort of has vetted these excursions to figure out what makes the most sense for their guests.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead, Chris.
My thought is like river cruising is probably not typically child oriented, at least historically speaking. So Disney is probably like, let's pack some additional types of excursions that kids could be, finding educational and also are interesting. I think that Disney also, correct me if I'm wrong, but Disney is not entirely taking over the ship. There are non-Disney families on these sailings.
Not on their sailing. So they have chartered the entire ship for for their specific cruises. But then weeks that Disney is not using it, then AMA's doing their program.
Okay. So that makes sense.
And to your point, Chris, as far as each one of these, and especially with the expedition cruises too, they made sure they mentioned it, that there are, separate nights where the adventure guides that are with you will take the kids and do kind of kid-centric, kind of activities, while the adults can kind of have maybe dinner or an evening by themselves too. So there's definitely that aspect of this trip as well, to these trips as well. So anything else about the river cruises, Christy?
No.
Chris, any other thoughts on the river cruises?
Just that I know I want to do it one day, and probably
Absolutely.
would want to do it with Disney, to be honest. So you didn't ask me, but I would pick Amsterdam. Not because I think Amsterdam's an inaccessible city, but Paris is so accessible that I'm like, I'll see Paris, any given number of times. But Amsterdam feels like something that I'd be less likely to get to experience unless it was attached to something like this. So that's probably what I would pick.
So that would be the Rhine River then. So something to consider for the future.
And I'm going to pick Budapest. So that's a place I've always wanted to go to.
Because of Hawkeye and Scarlet or Black Widow.
Yes. This is my MCU coming out in me. So I want to say hi to Kate. She's watching, and also Jennifer too. Thanks for joining us today, guys. All right, well, let's jump into the Galapagos, or the expedition cruises that they've come out with. We'll start with the Galapagos, and then we'll move on into the Antarctic. As far as these go, they start their bookings for the Galapagos. It's going to be May of 2022. I didn't see necessarily, and Chrissy, correct me if I'm wrong, if there are adult-only sailings. It seemed like it was mostly family sailings. I didn't see them necessarily put that out.
I will look right now.
Okay, as you're looking at that. So they offer, and as we kind of learned with Jen on the podcast this week, there are several different islands that make up the Galapagos. You're not going to visit all of them. So there's different itineraries. There's a east-south, east-south-north, and then what she went on was the northwest. And the northwest ones are the furthest away and also the most isolated and the hardest to get to. So that's something that, as you kind of research what you would want to do, and those are some things to kind of look into as far as what islands you would want to visit. So these are 9-day cruises. I think the river cruises are generally 7, right, Christy? Or was it 8?
You're asking me a lot of questions.
I know. I'm putting you on the spot.
It is 7 nights. Yes.
7 nights. Okay. So the Galapagos is 9 nights. You fly into and out of Quito. They have a different age. A minimum age on these are 8, and they suggest 8+. Talking to Jen once again, her son was 9, and she felt like he was probably the youngest that she would take, because these are expeditions. You're going to be out snorkeling, hiking, doing lots of kind of activities, getting into and out of pangas, which are small inflatable rafts to take you into different beaches, that because you're not going to be able to pull up to a pier. There's no pier.
I mean, it's not like a raft. There's an engine on it, though. It's not like you're going to get out your rowboat. But
no, I'm pretty sure it's like the canoes in Disneyland, right, Chris?
Uh-huh.
Everybody get the row.
No, they have, of course, they have engines on them that are going to take you into to do these hikes. So they recommend a little bit older age for the children to bring with. So let's see. Once again, kind of talking to her, Jen, in the episode, I think both of these expedition ones are ones that I think you kind of have to realize that you're going to be out and about doing a lot of different things. So kind of think about that before you book it. If that's something that doesn't interest you, hiking and snorkeling, then you're probably not going to get the most bang for your buck if you go on one of these. Is that the best way to say it? I'm not sure. Hopefully I'm saying it right.
A lot of wildlife viewing, a lot of activities going to be involved. So, if you have mobility issues, that will be more complicated.
And maybe you were going to say this, Steve, but I feel like the Galapagos Islands are significant literally because they are unique in terms of the animals that live there, unique in terms of how different the ecosystem is there. Like, that was literally where Darwin figured out evolution and was able to study evolution at more of a micro level. So I feel like, if you're going to go, you have to have an interest in things like that, or else what are you doing?
Yeah, I I think the other thing that was kind of interesting that she pointed out was that, Adventures by Disney doesn't necessarily make up the itineraries. I mean, they do, but the Galapagos, the organization that oversees the Galapagos really kind of dictates what you can and cannot do through there. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. So something that you had in her, and I guess this goes with all, whether you're on a Disney Cruise Line or not, things can change if things come up. So, nothing's set in stone. So what else do I got on this? I just want to once again reiterate, there will be engaging onboard activities for adults and junior adventurers alike. So there could be times that you could actually, engaging. So you can kind of hang out and talk to your significant other, and hopefully in times of non-COVID, your other adventurers, well, the kids kind of go and have their own time as well. There are still discounts available on a lot of these, but there are a couple that are now accepting wait lists. And Christy, we talked about this on a different episode, but you had some thoughts on wait lists as far as, don't feel deterred if there is a wait list, because people do change their plans.
Yeah, so you can put yourself on the wait list. There was a trip that we were going to take this summer that I don't know if anybody's going to take, but hopefully some people will start to get out there and go to Europe at some point. But because of our own life plans, we took ourselves out of that trip. And so another family of 3 or 4 is now going to be able to slot in that didn't otherwise think that they would. So just get yourself on a wait list. Disney does monitor it. They do call you. And again, you can use a travel agent to do that as well.
Chris, any other thoughts about the Galapagos there?
I mean, I want to spend so much time with Galapagos tortoises and just live my best life. But yeah, that would be a bucket list. I'll be honest and say, and this is a me thing, I would be anxious to be so far away from civilization. Like my biggest reservation with any of these is like, what if you have a medical emergency, or like, what if you need a doctor and you're in the Galapagos Islands or in Antarctica? So that
well, at least
kind of makes me anxious, but
the Galapagos, Ecuador is not that far.
Not too far, but like,
so.
Still, it's one of those things where I'm like, would I be brave enough to?
How is the kid in this podcast the one who's worried about medical emergencies?
Listen, I have anaphylactic shock from eating bananas. So what happened? In fact, we just did like I don't know when it'll come out, Steve, but the show that we recorded last night, our guest was saying that they had to stop vacationing so often in places without like major hospitals because was it his dad was allergic to bees or something like that? So Anyway, my point is anaphylactic shock is real, and I don't want to be in the Galapagos Islands when I go into anaphylactic shock.
Well, that's why you have travel insurance, and make sure you read the fine print in your travel insurance.
Mm-hmm. And you should probably buy extra good higher medical evacuation insurance so you can get to that hospital.
We had a pilot break his leg down in Mexico, and they had to, luckily for him, the company actually chartered the private jet to get him out of Mexico and take him back up to North America. But yeah, that's a pretty pricey.
For a broken leg?
Yeah, because he broke it and it started to get infected.
Oh.
Yeah, he broke it slipping on a grate and then got some water in it and kind of the infections just.
A Mexican grate with Mexican water.
Yeah. So, all right. That's the Galapagos. Obviously, the 3 of us have not been there yet, so we can't give you some complete inside information. I've been to Ecuador. Ecuador is an amazing country. People super friendly. Quito is a beautiful city. The only other thing I'd throw out in Quito, and they talk about this on their site, is it is high up in altitude. So something to think about if that affects you at all, or if you would have any ill effects being at high altitudes for a couple of days. So, all right, let's jump into the Antarctic, Chris. Okay.
So Disney has yet to do these, right? This is
right.
Like they announced that they're doing this. And also they announced it during COVID time. So people are hoping that it would sail this summer, but who knows? But I do have information on it. So the Antarctic expedition is 12 days. It includes 31 meals and it visits 16 different locations. And it is priced at $13,689 per person.
But it's like, besides the tip, that's almost everything.
Yeah, no, you're right. It includes, it also includes your flights inside of the expedition. So like if you need to get from one place to another just as part of your tour. Does it include your flights to, no. Okay, so you have to get to Buenos Aires yourself. So it starts in Buenos Aires, and you do sort of like some land-ish things around there for a bit for the first day or two. And then you get on a ship. It's like a small cruise ship. I wouldn't call it, I mean, it's definitely bigger than a yacht, but it is not anywhere near the size of a Disney cruise ship. And you get on one of these cruise ships and you go through the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage, of course, is famous because it's where the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean meet. And so the waters there are really turbulent sometimes. And back
Chris
in the
and I would
day,
die.
yeah, back in the day, sailing through the Drake Passage was considered a death sentence. Now, that was because they were sailing on like wooden ships with no navigation and all of that. So don't worry, it is safe to do. But it also can be extremely choppy. And Disney in huge print is like, bring your bring your Dramamine, put your Scopamine patch on, whatever you need to do, because this water is not messing around. And that's 2 days. You're basically on the Drake Passage for 2 days off the point of Chile, which is sort of like that lowest tip of South America. And then there are 2 days later, these islands that are coming up off of Antarctica. And that's sort of where you will, the Antarctic Peninsula is where you will sort of make landfall and have different expedition type things. Interestingly enough, it does include penguins and whale watching, which, please, that's amazing.
Awesome.
You can go on a hike to the top of like a vantage point at the tip. You can also do kayaking. Cold water kayaking sounds really interesting. Now, the weird thing about the Antarctic Peninsula, and because they've never done this, this might be why the schedule is listed this way. Every day that they're in the Antarctic Peninsula just lists all those activities every day. So it's like, see whales, go hiking, go kayaking, because it's sort of like probably you could choose which activities you want to do while they're sort of like anchored around that peninsula doing things. At least that's what I'm gathering from their website.
Typically with these types of places, they are governed, and the activities that can occur are governed by somebody else. Like the Galapagos, it's governed by whoever governs there. And Antarctica is going to be the same. So I think they have to find out what is going to be acceptable and allowable and weather permitting and all things like that for that particular day. So these are the things that are going to occur during your Galapagos trip. And we just don't know it, our Antarctic trip, but we don't know which one you're going to do.
Which ones,
on
yeah.
which day.
Yeah.
Also to note, did
yeah,
you guys, just the minimum age. So the minimum age for this is 10 and suggested is 12. So it's even higher than the previous two categories that we've discussed.
And that's actually pretty high for any adventures by Disney. Like that's Disney basically being like, don't bring your kids unless they are teenagers.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's a lot involved.
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, the truth is, this is probably on a lot of people's bucket list, but it would take a lot of grit to get there. You know, flying to the like southern tip of Chile and traveling across the Drake Passage not once but twice, once to get to Antarctica and once to get back. Noted though, all your meals are included, just like on a cruise ship. The ship that they are taking has a pool, which is kind of cool.
Could you imagine?
And Can you literally? I can't. Although when I say pool, I mean like about the size of the Virgin,
Yeah.
whatever the Virgin ships have.
Except that Virgin ship has a lot more people at it. Sorry, I got excited.
That's true. You're right. Virgin has made so many mistakes.
They should just be using this time to fix that pool situation.
They really should. And then I will say that like the ship itself looks sleek and modern on the outside, at least, and certainly capable of crossing the Drake Passage. So don't let my like everybody dies when they cross it scare you. That was just like 200 years ago. Nowadays, easy to cross. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So yeah, I would say if you at all are thinking, I want to be able to say I've been to all 7 continents, Antarctica is a really hard one to cross off your list, and this is a way to do that. So
in a manner that would feel safe, in my opinion.
I agree. And, you know, I mentioned the whole thing about I need to be near a hospital. And I'm sure this ship has some sort of like emergency first aid medical facility type situation. So again, this is probably as safe as you can get while visiting a continent that has no major cities. So I would say this is something
We're not going to allow Chris to do these shows anymore. He's always like the doom and the gloom element. Don't remind people of that. Kidding.
I just said I would do it if I had an extra $25,000 lying around.
He's just our cautious one. That's all. So we need to have that too. But
we need balance.
Yes, exactly.
If people have questions, they can put them in the chat. Not that we would necessarily know the answer, but we'll try to find your answer. But if you have questions or who's excited about this, we do have some people watching right now. So if you are watching live, put in the chat whether you're excited about this.
I want to circle back to the Galapagos. One thing I forgot to mention, listening to Jen's experience down there, that you actually have to have naturalists that are what I'm trying to find the right word, that are sanctioned by the Galapagos to go with you. So that's one of the cool things too, is you're not just going to be out there looking, hey, what is that bird? You're going to have somebody with you that's going to kind of give you that background. Yeah, telling you. And I'm sure it would be the same thing with the Antarctic as well.
It is.
Yeah. And that ship looks like something out of James Bond. I want that ship. Like,
I know. I'm like, is that like Barack Obama's yacht? I'm into
it. Let's see. Jennifer says, and not running a marathon on each continent in 7 days like you can for the right price. Yeah.
Wow.
So let's go. Anything else about the cruises themselves? Otherwise, let's kind of finish up. We'll talk about what it's like to book. This is a little bit different than Disney Cruise Line. Nope. All right. Well, let's jump into that, Christy. As far as booking an ABD trip, it's a little bit different. I will say 2021, they have some different policies. So you want to go there and take a look at what they have. There's some COVID related policies that are different than 2022. 2022 seems like they're going back to kind of the original way that they book. And why don't you go over those differences, Christy, or just how you book?
Yeah. So one major difference is you can't book online like you can for Disney. Even as a travel agent, we can't book online. We have to call. So everybody has to call. When you put your deposit down, which is like 10% of your trip, after 14 days, it is non-refundable. So you say you want to go, you have to give them all your information. And then 14 days after you put that deposit down, you are committed to money being with ABD, or at least not getting a refund. So that you really have to keep in mind, because 14 days isn't very long. And so
do they offer travel insurance?
They do, but you have to remember that travel insurance isn't going to let you use it just because you say,
cancel
I don't want
for
to go
any
anymore.
reason. Yeah.
Right. So it has to be a covered reason to cancel, but you can move your adventure one time. And if Disney were to cancel your trip, then your money would be non-refundable. So that's just something to keep in mind. So
would be refundable.
Would
right?
be refundable.
It would be. Did I cut out?
Okay.
Yes. It is refundable if Disney cancels your trip. So like this year, for the people in the 2020 ABD adventures that didn't go, and for the ones that haven't gone yet for 2021, those people are all getting an opportunity to either book something in the future or have a refund on their monies.
Which, Disney should for sure do that. But I did not know what you said about only having a 14-day window to change your mind. That is...
Yes, you're committing. You're committing.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because the demand is so high for these things that they really don't want people like placing holds on them? Or what's the deal?
Yeah. And because they have to go through, there's so much involved on these, because it's not like a cruise where, our standard Bahamas, they're doing this every week. They already have shore excursions that you could book or not book, and they kind of don't care because they're in place. You could, do as you wish. But with these, they have to set up specific tours, and they need a certain number of people for it to be cost effective for them to do it. Which, to that point, let's talk really, really quick. Adventures by Disney started something for 2021 and in the future of like private tours. And the pricing, as far as like what it could be in your head, what you think they could get away with charging, the pricing is really reasonable. Like there could be a trip that they would typically allow 40 people to come on. And if you wanted to do it by yourself, I think it was like 16 grand for a single person, which is a lot of money. But if you really wanted to, in COVID times, not be sharing any space whatsoever, and Disney's only going to do these adventures once it's a little safer to be with more people. But if you really wanted your own family, your own private excursion, family of 2, family of 4, you can actually, for a reasonable-ish price, have a private excursion with ABD. So a private trip. So that is something, it's not for all of their locations, but in all of their trips, but it's a good number of them. So something to keep in mind if you were interested in wanting to do a family trip or even as a single without other people being involved. But back to your question, Chris, of why, it's because of so much involved and it's such a small amount of people. And even though they do have a wait list, there's just so much involved that they have to make sure that they sell these trips to a certain amount of people.
You know what they kind of remind me of? They kind of remind me of those like all fully itineraried like school trips that you would go on. Like in 8th grade, we went to DC and it was like our days were completely planned and where we were going to eat and what we were going to do and who the tour guides would be, and all of it was so planned. It feels like Disney's doing that, but like really well and like with tour guides you actually like.
Yeah, and so that's what these are. These are guided trips. So even the river cruise, you have an opportunity on the river cruises to not do some of the activities that they're offering you, or not eat your meal like on the riverboat. You can go out and do your own thing, but these are guided. So the point is you're supposed to, in theory, most of the time stay together.
And Steve, I don't know if you wanted to take this show as the opportunity to announce, but you and your family are starting an Adventures by Disney tour of Yellowstone, where you just sort of copy their itinerary and take listeners to the various locations of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Or are we not announcing that yet?
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, watch for that on the website, or our very exclusive website that we have.
For the low price of $25,000 per person for a 2-night excursion.
Yeah, 2-night excursion. I'll give you a guided tour around Jackson Hole, Jackson, Wyoming. So, and then you and I can go on that Antarctic cruise with the profits, right?
Yeah,
Chris?
You'll do that, and we'll take the profits and go to the Antarctic. And Christy will be like, "Why can't I go?"
Because she's got to stay home and wind the shop. I like that. So we had a couple more comments here. Kate says, in college, I did a semester at sea. We hit 30 to 50 foot seas for a few days off the Aleutian Islands. Ooh. Brutal. All classes on the ship were canceled. Professors were down and out. I could not imagine that.
No, I would be so ill.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was not a big ship.
I can't remember. I remember. Do you guys remember? I remember seeing those like signs when I was in college and a semester at sea and everything like that. So that's cool that you did that, Kate.
That is very cool.
30 to 50 foot waves.
Wasn't there like a there was like at the original TV shows where they air them, there was one of those about being a semester at sea. Like a back in the day reality television show.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember that one.
That sort of does sound familiar.
So anything else about booking? I guess the main thing to take away from that is
wait a minute. Before you get to there, how are you not mentioning Kate's comment about Schitt's Creek and Ted forever changing the Galapagos for her. Hello, that is like the best television show ever. And you can't just ignore that comment.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm still on season 1, so I'm not
You've
to that part yet.
Keep going, Steve. It's so good. It is literally the best television ever.
Chris, which way are you caught up all the way, Chris?
I'm about to watch the season finale of season 5.
Wow.
I cry
It's
a
so
lot. It's a really funny show, but also it's emotional. It hits me in the feels.
All the feels. You get all the feels. You have to get past like the first 4 episodes, first of all. But then once you do that, you still have to get past the first season. But which is, I feel like a lot of commitment to determine whether the show is good. But then it just starts to get so good.
Yeah. It's hard on people because the characters are so vapid. So it's like, oh, these people are so annoying. But don't worry, you get beyond that and it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Agree.
And they develop them so beautifully. And
we're not even sponsored by Schitt's Creek. This is just like
we should be.
Our own. This is just our own opinions.
Our own COVID at times opinions.
So Kate says before Road Rules was the show.
Before Road Rules, there was an MTV show about, you're right, some sort of like challenge at sea. I remember this now. I wasn't allowed to watch it.
I left MTV. I left MTV after what was the one where they all lived together? The very first like reality.
The
Real World.
Real World. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. Don't encourage him, Nathan. Do not encourage him. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something fun with that. Nathan says, I hope I didn't miss the Mr. Wren appearance. No, he's busy doing schoolwork right now. Mr. Wren is working on his business and his schoolwork. So we'll hopefully have him on sometime soon. So I guess to finish out, thanks for coming in and listening. But when booking one of these, just to the point it's a real commitment. So it's something you got to really think about. The good thing is like you say, Christy, you can move it once. So if something does come up, you do have that opportunity, and you wouldn't lose. Well, it would depend upon how close you are and if you paid in full. But what you do lose is the deposit. So,
right.
Wait a minute. You can move it once to any itinerary or to the same itinerary on a different date?
Either one.
Okay.
But you have to do it within 2 years.
What happened to remember when you were going to go to Pixar and do the whole thing, that just got refunded or you got it moved to something else?
Yeah. So it got canceled at first because of COVID.
Yeah.
And then we moved it to that European adventure that would be this summer. But because of some other stuff we're doing in our life, and they offered at that very time the opportunity to book an ABD trip and have it be refundable. So there's a few people that booked. There's even a couple of podcast listeners that have booked ABD adventures that were in that little tiny window that said, please just book an adventure with us and then you can get your money back. And we moved it to this Europe trip that was in that little window where we could get our money back. And
so you got your money back. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm sorry you
didn't happen though
to Pixar or Europe.
Yeah. Anthony Hatch and I were actually texting back and forth this morning about doing an ABD trip. Like just in general, at some point we have to do it type of thing. And then that would be one, if you're a Disney fan, first of all, the price is super like within a range of what somebody could afford more easily. And as a Disney fan, to get some of that backstage, behind the scenes stuff, plus like special viewing when Disneyland ever opens, A, and B, we're allowed to be with other people so that you could see fireworks and stuff like that you get some like really VIP type experiences. And so that would be a great like lead-in adventure for a lot of people to do. And they have a shorter escape. So there's one that's a week long, but there's one that's like a long weekend type escape, which would be great as well.
So another one, I guess I'll just throw this out there. My parents actually gave us a little bit of a present and booked a little bit of a present. Yeah, it's a huge present. An Adventures by Disney trip for us in not this spring break, not this March, but next March, 2022. And it is down to Costa Rica. And so, as you said, the backstage magic, and I think the Costa Rica for the international travel tends to be some of the cheaper versions and kind of like the entry point, a good entry point to Adventures by Disney. If Japan or Egypt kind of scare you a little bit, you're intrigued, but maybe you want to try something different first. So
And I
What
think Italy is like that
is
too. It's like maybe more reasonable.
Yeah.
what is the Costa Rica? I mean, we don't have time for you to dive into it, but what does that include? Like is it long? Is it
So it's
Probably.
so it's 7 nights and river rafting, hiking through the rainforest, times down on the beach. It's kind of Costa Rica. You start off in the mountains, so you do kind of a mountain type experience, and then you end up down on the beach. And so our airline flies down there, and that's kind of like generally the people that we know. We've actually got some friends going to Costa Rica in March, and they're trying to figure out like how they get their COVID test to get back into the country. But that tends to be what most people do is they start up in the mountains and then head towards the beach. So kind of that type of trip.
I'm glad that it's not till 2022 because you'll probably get to do it.
Yeah, I don't think March will be going, but anyway, Nathan says we need a chaperone. We might. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Maybe I'll send you with the kids and my wife and I. Anawake and I'll go do something else. I shouldn't say that, should I? No. Well, everybody who's no, I love my kids. I'm just kidding. I can't wait to.
We know you love your kids.
We all can't wait to. I know all of us can't.
But
wait
we
to
would
travel.
definitely all like a little bit of time where they're not with us all the time.
Yeah.
Like that gift.
And that's what makes cruising and these adventures travel trips amazing, because you can have that time together, but then Disney kind of builds in that time for the kids to have their kid time as well. So I guess as we get out of here, thanks for everybody who listened to us live. I appreciate all the comments. If anybody has any questions, if you listen to it later, you can always reach out to us at all different contexts. Steve at DCLpodcast.com, Christy at packyourpixiedust.com, and Chris, why don't you give yours because I can never remember it.
I mean, I don't really know. You can find me on Instagram at Chris Z Bright.
There you go.
Originally, I was like, I shouldn't put my own social media out there but now I'm just like, you do you.
And Christy, for everybody who might want to book with you, why don't you give your information out too? So
if you want to find my phone number, go to packyourpixiedust.com. In the About section, it talks about different ways to reach me. Also on my Pack Your Pixie Dust Facebook page, I have my business cards right on there. So it's got my travel phone number and email address, so you can reach out. As a reminder, it does help the show if people book through me, because my agency, Just Cruises and Vacations, so the agency I work through is a sponsor of the show, or is the sponsor of the show. So, but we only get to give them money if the agency earns some commissions on travel booking. So if people are interested in using me as an agent, they can reach out, and then we can give a little money to the show to help pay its bills.
Awesome. So, well, once again, thanks for coming and taking a listen. And I guess I will see everybody in Budapest when you get off that river cruise. You'll see Chris over in Amsterdam, and Christy, I can't remember now. Where did you say?
Doesn't even listen to me.
Paris, the city of lights. I'm sorry, Christy. Don't hate me. All right. Well, thanks for coming back and listening, guys. And we will be back soon with another Coffee at the Cove. Those dates for summer of 2022 should be coming out soon with DCL, and then the
rest of 2022 will come out in like May-ish for the ABD trips.
Good point.
So if you're thinking of taking an Adventures by Disney like land trip in 2022, those dates will come out April, May timeframe, and so you can start looking for that as well.
So look for us probably definitely for sure when DCL comes out with their summer rates, hopefully sometime this month, next month, and then also in May when Adventures by Disney comes out with their land expeditions.
And none of us think that they will be announcing the Wishes sale dates anytime soon.
We'll see.
I mean, they might want the money, honestly. They might want the deposits. So even if they move people, because look at Carnival has moved people, Celebrity, almost every brand new giant ship that has come out has not been released when they thought it would. And so they take those people and say, sorry, you're getting moved. But they can have all of those deposits. And think of how big this is going to be for Disney. And Disney could probably use a little bit of money, especially Disney Cruise Line. So I don't know for sure that they won't, just because they might want those deposits.
Well, I guess we all need to start saving.
Definitely.
Good point. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodbye. And thanks again for everybody coming back to take a listen. check that Galapagos episode. It was a lot of fun with Jen. We'll have a bonus episode out this Friday, a completely different episode. I'm going to be curious to see what you think. It's a total, we're trying something new kind of thing.
Oh.
And Christy and Chris kind of know about it, but I haven't really told them yet. But well, it's a little history. So we'll see what people think about that. Anyways, thanks for all you guys' support. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.